nobody decides to become the villain. Like, nobody wakes up and just picks evil off a shelf.
Yeah, that just doesn't happen in the real world.
Right. I want you to sit with that for a second, because it's genuinely more frightening than the alternative. I mean, if villains were just born wrong, you'd never have to worry.
You could just spot them and stay away.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
they're not. They're built. So today, we are tearing into this stack of character studies on Obito, Nagato, and Eren, and we're crossing that with clinical psychology papers on trauma. We're doing a deep dive into the exact mechanism of how a good person becomes a monster.
And the turning point, it's never this sudden dramatic embrace of darkness.
No, it's usually a tragedy.
Right. We all know the inciting incidents, right?
Right.
The rock crushing half a body, Yahiko falling, the breach of Shiganshina. The uniforms change, but the math is totally identical.
Because none of these were men who loved cruelty. It was just grief with nowhere to go. Okay, let's unpack this, because I have to push back a little here.
Okay, go ahead.
It's one thing to say grief turns into violence, but plenty of people lose everything and they don't go on to level entire cities. Why do Obito and Eren break bad when others don't?
Well, it comes down to a psychological process called moral disengagement. It is a mechanism. It's not a mood.
Moral disengagement. Okay.
Right, so you don't wake up cruel. You take one justified step. But the engine driving that step is linguistic reframing.
Changing the words you use.
Yeah, exactly. You change the vocabulary of your actions. You stop calling it murder and you start calling it cleansing or inevitability. And once you relabel the action, your brain actually stops triggering its standard guilt responses.
Oh, wow. So it's less like a slippery slope and more like an autoimmune disease?
That is a great way to put it, yeah.
Your moral immune system is supposed to attack evil, but massive trauma completely confuses it. So it just starts attacking everything else in the name of protecting the host.
And because you took that first justified step, your baseline recalibrates entirely. You aren't actively choosing violence anymore.
You're just reacting.
You're discharging unmetabolized pain. And you're using a vocabulary that makes it feel heroic.
I know this feeling. I mean, on a much smaller scale, but I've done this. I did it just last year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I made a really selfish decision, and I completely justified it by telling myself I was just being strategic.
Being strategic, right. The reframing.
Right. My stress felt big enough to deserve a pass, but I called it strategic to protect my own ego. But these guys aren't just protecting their egos, they are wiping out populations. So what does this all mean when we look at the broader philosophical implications of trauma?
Well, how does a personal defense mechanism scale up to planetary destruction?
Yeah, exactly.
It scales when that justification metastasizes into your entire identity.
Mm-hmm.
We connect this to the bigger picture. Everyone quotes Nietzsche's warning about staring into the abyss.
Assuming he meant fighting literal monsters.
Right, but he didn't. He was talking about staring too long at your own wound until it becomes the only thing you see. Obito, Nagato, Eren. They weren't corrupted by some external enemy. They magnified their unhealed loss until it literally became their worldview.
The wound basically becomes the lens.
Yes, it dictates every single choice. And this illustrates Carl Jung's concept of the shadow.
The unhealed parts of ourselves.
Exactly. The shadow contains all the ugly parts of ourselves that we flat out refuse to look at. So when you linguistically reframe your cruelty as justice, you're just shoving the reality of your actions into the shadow.
And they don't just disappear.
No, Jung warned about this. Those parts don't vanish just because you gave them a nicer name. They gain power in the dark.
They start driving from the back seat.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Eventually, they dictate your behavior while you sit there entirely convinced you are still the hero of the story.
Man. Which brings us to the really uncomfortable question for you listening. Where in your life have you justified a quiet erosion of your character simply because your pain felt big enough to deserve it?
Right, because we aren't talking about starting a literal war here.
No, we're talking about everyday life.
We're talking about the deeply unkind thing you said to a partner, which you labeled honesty, or the friend you aggressively cut off. Labeling it growth, you have to check the pattern before it checks you.
So here is your challenge for tonight.
Name one recent thing that you justified with your pain. Instead of owning it as a choice, you don't have to tell anyone.
Just name it to yourself.
That is the whole exercise. Break the linguistic reframe.
Just name it. Because monsters aren't born in darkness. They're built one justified step at a time by people who forgot to ask if they were still fighting for the thing they lost.